Welcome to all our viewers of CCR TV. Once again, this is St. John's Ambulance presenting to you the second episode of Health, Food and Bible. This episode will have Dr. Jorson Fernandez, who is the chairman of the St. John Ambulance in Goa. He is a surgeon examiner and an ENT surgeon. And we also have engineer Kenneth Lopish, who is the assistant secretary of St. John Ambulance in Goa. Over to Kenneth Lopish.
So we know we've got to go back to nature, go back to natural foods, and the debate is now over which foods are most healthy. What are the foods that we need to eat? And remember, while we ask this question, we need to focus on quality. So the message is to stay away from processed foods and stay away from sugar, right? Okay, we need to eat clean, and when we say eat clean, we need to avoid white sugar, white flour, processed foods, chemically enhanced foods, all foods which contain artificial ingredients. Remember, sugar is a poison, a sweet poison. To make it very simple, remember, if the food came from a plant, from a tree, eat it. However, a word of caution over here, not all plant foods are safe. You have poisonous plants as well. And also, in today's day of science and technology, we have GMOs, which are genetically modified foods. So if the food was made in a plant, if it was made in a factory, it was made in an industry, don't eat it. Here again, however, with people being more educated, making informed choices, we have industries, we have factories which grow organic food. But remember, organic food has a shorter shelf life and they are more expensive. Still some confusion? What to eat? Ask yourself a very simple question. Ask yourself, did God make this or did man make this? To make it even simpler, were I to give you a packet of Uncle Chips and ask you, did God make this? No. I would give you a fruit, a mango, and ask you, did God make this? Yes. It's pretty simple. So unfortunately, what we consume today is highly processed, highly refined, and this is what drives diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and other chronic diseases. We have got another story horribly wrong. And this is the story of an unfortunate victim in fat. As it turns out to be, sugar is the biggest driver of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cancer, heart disease, even dementia. They're now calling it the type 3 diabetes. And it turns out fat is not to blame for this. So this is where we have got the whole story wrong. Avoid processed meats, bacon, canned meat, hot dogs, salami. Avoid big fish like kingfish, chornok, morsaw, big mackerel, tuna, swordfish, sea bass, lobster, shark. Processed foods, remember, have additives. They have preservatives, dyes, MSG among them. A lot of people are told to avoid sugar and go in for substitutes, artificial sweeteners like aspartame, equal. Avoid preservatives, avoid artificial colors, avoid additives. Tetra Pak fruit juices, sports drinks, energy drinks, ice creams. Definitely a no to alcohol. However, remember, a red wine in moderation has certain health benefits. Now, when we spoke about big fish, the link between avoiding this is in mercury. Now, mercury is naturally available in the environment, but when this mercury gets into the water, bacteria can change it into a form called methyl mercury. Now, this methyl mercury is absorbed by tiny aquatic organisms, planktons. When fresh water and ocean fish eat these organisms, the mercury starts building up in their bodies. Now we know the cycle of life, the circle of life. The bigger fish will eat the smaller fish. They have a longer lifespan, and this leads to a higher level of mercury in the tissues of big fish. Don't be afraid of eating fish because remember, fish is an important source of protein and omega-3 fatty acids and provides multiple other benefits. We need to regulate our consumption of fish eating. Concentrate on eating smaller fish. And remember, when it comes to mercury, our bodies are capable of getting rid, but they can get rid of only a small amount of mercury, and that too over a period of time. Many a times it is advised that pregnant women, nursing mothers, and children below the age of 12 stay away from eating big fish. Now, we've seen that all fish contains amounts of mercury. However, it is certain human activities that can cause further increase in these natural mercury levels. Burning of fossil fuels, such as use of coal for electricity, may contribute to increasing the mercury in the environment. The focus here is on coal. Now, some of the symptoms of mercury are reduced coordination, decreased sense of touch, numbness of lips and mouth, tunnel vision or night blindness, and conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autism, depression, and anxiety have been linked to mercury. Pre-liberation days, I'm sure there was no big fish like now, and consequently no big health problems. I'd like to focus on a quote from the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 31, where we are told to do whatever we do to the glory of God. I think we all need to follow a healthy lifestyle, eat in a healthy manner, practice self-control, exercise, and care for our bodies. Remember, God has a reason for allowing things to happen. We may never understand His wisdom, but we simply have to trust His will. This is a quote from Psalm 37, verse 5. God has blessed us with 5 fingers, and if we look at the 5 fingers, these represent the 5 nutrients that we need. The 5 fingers are connected to the hand, and this represents a very important element. It is not a nutrient, and that is water. We all eat from a plate, but we need to start eating from a healthy eating plate. And a healthy eating plate would have whole grains, it would have healthy protein, it should have vegetables, it should have fruits, and these will make the 4 fingers. The 5th would be healthy oil. We spoke of the 6th element, which is not a nutrient, that is water. 5 fingers, 5 nutrients, 5 meals, 3 major meals, interspread with 2 small meals, that is your snacks, 1 snack between breakfast and lunch, and 1 snack between lunch and dinner. Remember to always stay active. Now, when we speak of 5 nutrients, this is broken down into 3 macronutrients and 2 micronutrients. Macronutrients are to be eaten in larger amounts, and carbohydrates, protein, and fats are the 3 macronutrients. Do not get too worried about these three terms. We will see in detail what each one is. We spoke about two micronutrients, and these are vitamins and minerals. Micro means smaller amount, but remember, small packs a punch, and vitamins and minerals are available in plenty in fruits and vegetables. When we speak about carbohydrates, now remember, this is our primary source of energy. Carbs fuel our body, especially our nervous system, our central nervous system and brain, and protect against disease. Carbohydrates should make up 45 to 65% of your total daily calories. Carbohydrates are essential to the body, and they are sugars. They are absorbed as sugars. And when we talk about sugars, there are 2 or 3 different types of carbohydrates or sugar, that is simple, complex, and fiber. We need to limit our intake of certain simple sugars such as white bread, pasta, and polished rice. Remember, sugar consumption in excessive amounts has been implicated in the onset of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, dementia, and tooth decay. We have naturally occurring sugars. This is what we need, and these naturally occurring sugars are present as fructose in fruits, some vegetables, and honey. Naturally occurring sugar is available in milk in the form of lactose. It is also available in beer and malt whiskey as maltose. Most of the food we eat has glucose. Glucose is a naturally occurring sugar. We spoke about honey. Remember to go in for raw pure honey. When we talk about jaggery, jaggery is also a natural and simple sugar. Have unrefined jaggery. Coconut sugar is also an alternate. So also stevia plant leaves. Raw sugar, which I spoke about, is known to have antioxidant and antimicrobial properties. Besides this, it is packed with minerals such as iron, calcium, phosphate, sodium chloride, potassium, and magnesium. So power packed with a lot of nutrients. Factory made honey again now has been deemed unhealthy because it gets ripped of its nutrients. There is a chemical process involved in it. Jaggery, which is known as gur, is also loaded with antioxidants and minerals like zinc and selenium. It helps boost resistance against infections and helps builds stronger immunity. The need of the hour today is in enhancing our immunity. We need to look to foods which do that. So when we talk about added sugar, artificial sugar, we are looking at table sugar. This is sucrose, glucose plus fructose. We have another in thing right now, another in compound, and that is HFCS, high fructose corn syrup. You'll find it in your Tetra Pak fruit juices, in candy, in baked goods, in sweetened dairy, and in some savory foods like white bread, tomato sauce. Remember, tomato sauce is much loved by our children. Certain protein bars can have sugar. When we opt for curd, when we opt for sugar, go for plain curd. Remember, canned food, frozen and dried fruit also has sugar. Now, the idea is very simple. We need to stop using sugar, stop using it in tea and coffee, and if it is difficult, which very rightly it would, reduce, start with reduction. Remember, white sugar are empty calories and have no nutritional value at all. This is a crystallized sucrose extracted from either sugarcane or sugar beets, and then there is a chemical process involved. We spoke about HFCS, and it is the fructose basically which is processed in the liver, and in large amounts this causes damage to the liver. When fructose is broken down in the liver, it is transformed into fat, and too much of HFCS causes non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD. Now, if NAFLD is unmonitored, if allowed to progress, it progresses to NASH. NASH is basically liver inflammation and steatosis, which is scarring of the liver. This progresses even further down the line. It results in cirrhosis of the liver, and that will need a liver transplant. So excess sugar has also been linked to heart diseases like heart failure, heart attacks, and strokes. The WHO has put a limit on the amount of sugar that we can consume on a daily basis. If possible, avoid it completely. But if you do need to consume, remember the limit for men is 9 teaspoons on a daily basis. For women, it is 6 teaspoons. For children aged 4 to 18, this is 5 to 6 or 7 teaspoons. Now for children below the age of 4, there is no limit as such given. But remember, the limit would be very, very less. And it is always recommended that children under 4 avoid sugar sweetened drinks and food with added sugar. Now, we all need energy. We all need sugar. This is got from the food we consume in the form of glucose. And glucose is stored in our liver and in our muscles as glycogen.
Kenneth shared with us the ill effects of artificial sugar. He talked about HFCS, and he talked about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And earlier we were told that the cause of heart problems was fat, but later on they said no, sugar also causes inflammation. To throw deeper light on this aspect, we have chief of the St. John's Ambulance in Goa, and he's a surgeon examiner and also an ENT specialist, none other than Dr. Johnson Fernandez. Doctor, welcome.
Thank you.
Doctor, you heard about sugar, the problems. You talked about liver problems, enlarged fatty liver. What is your take on that?
What we see today, there are people who are using these artificial sugars that we have got, and that is the main culprit that we see, because many a time we have people who are coming for fitness or they go for their ultrasound and then they say, Doctor, makani fatty liver khinche re, this is how they talk about. And that's something which is worrying for them, because they say, I don't even drink alcohol, and how is that my liver is being scarred, my liver is enlarged, and they get worried. What is that is causing it? They think, is it cancer of the liver? What is it? But they don't realize it is this small culprit called the sugar that is causing all that. And by the time you go and explain to them, some of them understand, some of them just ignore you because they feel, okay, what this doctor is talking, God alone knows. But I think sessions like this are important when people listen, when people digest that and assimilate it, and their mindset will change and a behavior change will come into our whole society. And that's what is very important for us when we are talking the preventive concept of our disease pathology in this world.
Doctor, एक सांगो, तू कांता fatty liver जाल म्हणू, तू कोण ना?
Fatty liver unless until they go to an ultra-personologist who is being asked to go there, only that is the time they will come to know. Otherwise, people are least bothered what's been happening. because they don't do their blood test, they don't do their any other regular testing that they need to do when they cross their 35, 40 years of age, what happens abroad. Or when you are an insured person, the insurance company will say like, okay, you need to do your regular testing because they want to see that your whole health is being tapered and kept informed because they have to spend the money for you. Here that health insurance concept is not there, so they leave it to themselves. Only when they are sick, that is the time they go, and a discovery about their ill health will be done at that moment of time.
So, but what is the real danger when you don't tackle initially the NAFLD?
Now, when we are talking about this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, if you don't tackle it right in the beginning in tapering your consumption of sugar, then the scarring will start, then the cirrhosis will go through, and then there is an issue where this damage that is being created to your liver, it cannot come back again. So the only alternative for you is to replace the liver. That means where we are going
Liver
for
transplant.
Yeah.
But tell me how is economically?
That's something where, forget about economy part of it. The most important part is, do we have enough of centers to take patients for a liver transplant? That is the question. Now, we have got an advocacy that we have done onto this, and that's where we talk about ek chamach kam, ek kuler matshe kami kar padai. SOS. We are talking about sugars, oil, and salt. Char kadam age. That means we are talking about exercise. And that's the concept, that's the advocacy that we need to give for the people so that their lifestyle changes, their behavior change sets in, and we are going back to our roots. Like if you remember when we used to go for anybody's wedding, I still remember, they used to put the coconut rafts, आशे घालताले पळय, ताजेर बसपाचें, सकला पत्रावळी, सगळी पानां आसा ती ताका वीर बीर लावन. आनी तुका सगळ्या पेक्षा पयलीं तुगेली पत्रावळी येताली म्हणटा salt. That was being served separately for you. Then the other service was being all served. तुगे rice जावं, curry जावं, कितें आसा पळय तें तुका मागीर येतालें. Salt तुका separate मेळटा. तुका जाय जाल्यार घाल, नाल्यार तूं ना घाल नाका. So this is what the system was. We have to return back to that. Because when we are talking about 1 spoon less, ek chamach kam, of your salt, your oil and sugars, I think the lifestyle should change so that we can go into a preventive aspect of this disease pathology.
But of late, what we see now, even new hospitals that are coming up, they have provisions for liver transplants and things like that.
Yes, they are doing it because now more and more cases come in. People are more conscious. The health insurance company thinks of all these things. But the health education component is not as much, which should have been there. And I'm really very happy that sessions like this is going to educate our people, and it is going to also help them to bring about this lifestyle changes into them.
They also talk about sugar causing inflammation and leading to heart problems.
Yes, it does cause, because we get what is called as the atherosclerosis, the inflammation of the blood vessels. And when we talk about the coronary arteries, the arteries that supply our heart, with inflammation there is narrowing of the lumen. The lumen, which was big, that was sending a large column of blood for the heart tissue, and it's a pump that has been beating right from the time when we are in the womb of the mother, and it is beating even now. So it has been a continuously beating pump, and it needs that energy, and that energy is being brought in by the blood supply. Now, if you have got such a huge lumen of your artery, and certainly because of that inflammation, the whole of the narrowing takes place, then there is no enough of energy that is going to come in through the blood supply for you. And then suddenly you start getting chest pain, suddenly you start feeling breathlessness. And these things continue, and a stage will come when there are too many deposits into it, then you'll find that the blood vessel gets blocked. Part of the heart tissue doesn't get any energy and any oxygen whatsoever, and the cells of the heart die, and we talk about it as the myocardial infarct. So people get heart diseases like this. So the primary content in our food, what we call it the sugars that cause inflammation, the oils that are contained into our food that we have today, which also adds to the plaques that are occurring into our arteries, are the ones that are going to be dangerous, which cause people the heart disease as well as deaths at many a times.
We also talked about polycystic ovarian disease syndrome. Now, this was very rare in those days, but now I believe it's very, very common.
Yes. When we talk about the polycystic ovarian disease syndrome, we have the eggs that are not coming out. They are in the cystic form and they remain inside the ovary. And that's the very reason why you will find today that people, reproductive age ladies, they will not have their menses coming regularly. one we need to understand is the corporate swing. Now, what is this corporate swing? When a corporate is manufacturing a particular product, the corporate wants to sell it. So they start advertising and they start talking about only what are the positives for their product. But they don't speak about the negatives of their product. And when you don't start the negative of the product, people only look into what are the positive side of it and they start consuming it. They start taking it on. Just to give you one example of when we are talking about the sanitary pads. When the sanitary pads were being launched, there was so much of a corporate swing into it. They were telling people, you don't use cloth, you don't use this. Of course, there were instances where people were using cow dung, where people were using filing of the wood, where people were using sand. All these were being used as absorbent. But they started saying, when cloth was being used, which was being ironed, washed, dried up in the hot sun and was being used, they started saying, no, it can cause infection. And with that corporate swing today, we have added nothing but non-biodegradable waste, which is in tons and tons, and it is going to take about 400 years for it to disintegrate.
400 years?
Yes. Now, this is where the corporate swing is. So when we talk about all sorts of foods that we are going to consume today, we can't measure it. We can't, because we are only measuring it in the form of deaths in people. And then we are retrospectively trying to think, okay, why there are deaths? And by the time you try to do that, there's already half the population that has got the damage into their body system.
Do you mean to say that these fast foods are creating a havoc?
Yes, fast foods are creating a havoc. The reason is basically because when we watch various advertisements, again, another corporate swing, that is the time where people feel, okay, I can go to a restaurant, the development is going up, economic development of people is going up. As a result of people have money and they do not want to cook. Their lifestyle is changing, they are working and they are trying to make more and more money. And as they are making more and more money, they are not ready to live with the type of, with nature. And as a result of which they go for this fast food. They say, okay, let us not cook today. We are all tired, let's go to a small little joint and let us have our food. So we go there, and that's where we are consuming poison. You eat something which is being cooked very fast, you consume all that, and you go off also very fast.
No, maybe there is a reason for that, because in the earlier days our mothers would cook, mothers would not go and work in the offices and all.
Yes, it's an added component to that. Today the working mothers, they feel, that's why I said that they are getting tired and therefore they want to go to a joint. Earlier, yes, every lady that would get married, it was more so that you would be remaining at home, and it was an agrarian society, so you would be doing all the home errands that are there. You would look after the farm, you would look after maybe the children that are there at home, washing, cleaning, mopping, all that was being done by the lady at home. Hardly we had any maid servants that were working at home. But today we have even our children being left into the hands of the babysitters. We have got maid servants who are working for us. The mother is working because everybody thinks of keeping that lifestyle and the standard very high. So we want to have more and more money.
But you are damaging your own health
yes.
in the
Very
long
true.
run.
Yeah.
We talked also about mercury and methyl mercury. What is your say on that?
Mercury is a compound which is found in our fluorescent lights, the CFL bulbs that we have got. We also find that into the dental amalgams what we use. We also find it when we have got the coal plants. It is one of the extracts that comes out. From the mines it comes out. From the paint industry also we have all this methyl mercury. But there's a story that goes behind how the disease pathology came in. There was Minamata Bay, and this Minamata Bay was in the southern part of Japan, and there was an paint making industry. The effluent treatment plant was not working, so they left all the effluent into this bay. Directly into the bay. And there was no agency that would look in what was been happening, and as a result of which what happened was all this mercury and the mercurial compounds were going into this Minamata Bay. And as it went on, all the planktons and the small fish, they consumed this mercury. From there, the bigger fish got in, and all the people who were consuming this fish, the disease was named after the bay, and it was called the Minamata disease.
Is it?
Exactly what we are talking about, erythema. Erythema is where you get irritability. We get tremors, and that is called as mercurial Parkinsonism. We get the night blindness type of blindness that we have. It's called mercurial lentis. These are the various features of this methyl mercury poisoning that we develop.
So the tendency nowadays is to go for big fish. You think you are a big personality, you can afford a very big fish, but it is not healthy.
Right.
So we have seen the ill effects of fast food and the eating big fish, and I think so the message is very clear. It's a sharp message. So listen to what we have been sharing with you. Improve your health.